Queen Salvanna sat on her throne, staring at the massive screen in front of her. The data was clear. Her people, the mighty Zorithians, were dying out. No matter how advanced their technology was, no matter how strong their warriors had been in the past, they could not fight against time. For thousands of years, the Zorithians had ruled the stars. Their empires stretched across hundreds of planets, their fleets unmatched in battle. But their greatest enemy was not another alien race. It was their own biology. Zorithians had evolved to be perfect, strong, intelligent, and nearly immortal. But perfection had a cost. They had stopped evolving. Their genetics had become too stable, too predictable. Their species could no longer produce strong offspring. The few children born were weak, sickly, and unable to survive. They needed new life, new strength, a new beginning. And the answer was clear: human DNA. The Zorithian scientists had studied humans for years. They were strange, unpredictable creatures. Unlike most advanced species, humans had no limits. They adapted, they survived, they grew stronger under pressure. Where the Zorithians had remained the same for centuries, humans changed with every generation. If the Zorithians could mix their blood with human DNA, the royal bloodline might be saved. But not just any human would do. The queen needed someone exceptional, a human who was not just strong, but clever, determined, and able to face the challenges of the Zorithian legacy. And after years of searching, she had found him. Commander Darius Voss sat in the dark corner of a space station bar, sipping a glass of something that tasted like fire. He had seen a lot in his life: wars, betrayals, alien invasions. He had been a soldier, a mercenary, a survivor. Now he was just a man looking for his next job. The chair across from him slid back. A tall, hooded figure sat down. Even before she spoke, Darius knew she wasn't human. The way she moved, the faint glow of her golden eyes under the hood, this was someone powerful. "You are Darius Voss?" she asked. "Depends who's asking," Darius replied, swirling his drink. The hooded figure leaned forward. "I speak for Queen Salvanna of the Zorithian Empire. She wishes to meet you." Darius raised an eyebrow. The Zorithians. He had fought them once, years ago. Tough warriors. But they usually stayed out of human business. If their queen wanted to meet him, it had to be something big. "I'm not in the mood for politics," he said. "This is not politics," the Zorithian whispered. "This is about the future of an empire. And you are the only one who can save it." Darius sighed. He had heard a lot of strange offers in his life, but this was new. Still, he was curious, and curiosity had always been his weakness. "Fine," he said, finishing his drink. "Take me to your queen." The Zorithian royal palace was nothing like Darius had ever seen. It floated in space, a massive structure of black metal and glowing blue energy. It was both ancient and advanced, like something built by gods. Darius was led through golden hallways, past tall warriors who watched him with cold, unreadable eyes. He could feel the tension in the air. These people did not trust him. Finally, he was brought before the throne. Queen Salvanna stood, tall and graceful, her deep purple skin glowing under the soft lights. Her golden eyes studied him carefully. She was beautiful in a way that was almost inhuman, like a statue carved from living energy. "Darius Voss," she said, her voice smooth but powerful. "You are different from the others." "I get that a lot," Darius said, folding his arms. "So, what do you want from me, Your Majesty?" She took a step forward. "The Zorithian Empire is dying. Our bloodline is fading. We need something new, something strong. We need you." Darius frowned. "Me? I don't see how I fit into this. Our scientists have discovered that human DNA is the key to saving our people," Salvanna explained. "But we cannot mix with just any human. We need the best. A warrior, a survivor, a mind that can adapt and overcome. That is why we chose you." Darius let out a short laugh. "So let me get this straight. You want me to? What? Have kids with an alien queen? Zalvanna's eyes flashed with something unreadable. It is not so simple. To prove you are worthy, you must first face the trials of the primogenitor. Darius narrowed his eyes. Trials. She nodded. A test of strength, intelligence, and willpower. If you survive, you will become part of something greater than yourself. You will help build a new future. Darius thought about it. He had taken on impossible missions before, but this was on another level. But then again, he had always been a gambler, and something about this challenge excited him. He grinned. All right, Your Majesty. Let's see if I'm worthy. Queen Zalvanna smiled. Then let the trials begin. Darius Voss stood on a towering platform inside a massive chamber. The walls stretched high into the darkness, glowing symbols carved into the metal. Strange blue energy pulsed around him, filling the air with a low hum. He cracked his knuckles and took a deep breath. So, let me get this straight, he said, glancing at Queen Zalvanna, who stood on a raised throne-like structure above the arena. Before I help save your empire, I have to pass some kind of ancient test. The queen's golden eyes gleamed. It is not just a test, Darius Voss. It is a tradition. The trials of the primogenitor have determined the worth of every ruler, warrior, and leader in our history. If you fail, you are unworthy to continue the royal bloodline. Darius smirked. And if I win? Zalvanna's gaze didn't waver. Then you will earn the right to shape the future of the Zorithian Empire. Darius shrugged. Sounds fun. The queen gestured, and a Zorithian warrior stepped forward. He was nearly 8 feet tall, clad in sleek black armor. His violet skin shimmered under the chamber's light. His sharp, reptilian eyes locked onto Darius with cold precision. This is High Warden Korath, Zalvanna announced. He is the keeper of the trials. He will explain what you must face. Korath stepped closer, arms crossed. The trials are divided into 3 challenges, he said in a deep voice. Each will test a different part of you, your body, your mind, and your spirit. If you fail even one, you are disqualified. Darius grinned. Sounds like a game show. What's the first round? Korath's lips curled into something that might have been a smile. Survival. Trial 1. The Gauntlet of Strength. Darius was led into another chamber, a massive, circular arena surrounded by force fields. The walls shifted and changed, forming new pathways every few seconds. Korath's voice boomed from above. You must reach the other side of the gauntlet. But beware, the course is alive. Darius barely had time to process that when the floor rumbled beneath him. Suddenly, massive mechanical constructs burst from the ground. Towering battle droids with glowing red eyes and razor-sharp claws. Darius exhaled sharply. All right, let's do this. The first droid lunged at him, swinging a massive metal arm. Darius dodged, rolling to the side just in time. He grabbed a fallen metal rod from the ground and spun it in his hands. The second droid charged. Darius jumped onto its arm, using its momentum to propel himself upward. He flipped over its head and slammed the rod against its exposed joint. The droid collapsed, sparks flying. More droids surrounded him. But Darius wasn't just strong. He was fast. He moved between them, ducking, weaving, striking at weak points. He outthought them. While they were programmed to follow patterns, he was unpredictable. After a brutal 5 minutes, the last droid fell. Darius wiped sweat from his brow and looked up at Queen Zalvanna. She was watching him with great interest. He grinned. That all you got? Trial 2. The Mind's Labyrinth. Darius barely had time to rest before he was taken to the next challenge. This time, he stood in front of a massive floating cube covered in glowing symbols. Korath's voice echoed. This is the Mind's Labyrinth. You must solve the puzzle before time runs out. Darius frowned. A puzzle? After all that fighting? Should have started with this one. The labyrinth adapts to its challenger, Korath said. If you underestimate it, You will never leave. The moment Darius touched the cube, the world shifted. Suddenly, he was no longer in the chamber. He was standing in a massive, endless maze made of shifting walls. Strange whispers echoed around him. The paths twisted and changed every time he took a step. He gritted his teeth. All right. Think. He started moving, marking the walls with scratches as he walked. But the maze erased his marks every few seconds. It was testing his memory. Then the whispers grew louder, forming words. You cannot win. You are weak. Turn back. Darius scowled. Mind tricks. He had seen things like this before. Psychological warfare. If he let the voices distract him, he'd be trapped forever. Instead of panicking, he focused. He shut out the voices and relied on instinct. He studied how the walls moved, memorized the patterns, and found the cracks in the system. After what felt like hours, he finally saw it. A small light in the distance. He ran toward it. The moment he stepped through, the maze shattered like glass. Darius gasped as he found himself back in the chamber. Zelvanna's eyes narrowed. Impressive. Darius dusted himself off. Told you I was good. Trial 3. The Fire Within. The final challenge was different. Darius was led to a dark room, empty except for a single floating flame. This is the final test, Zelvanna said softly. The trial of spirit. Darius frowned. What do I have to do? She looked at him carefully. The flame will test your heart, your soul. It will show you your greatest weakness. Darius stared at the flame as it flickered. Then, suddenly, memories flooded his mind. The battles, the losses, the faces of fallen comrades, his own failures, the moments when he could have saved someone, but didn't. The weight of it all hit him like a punch to the chest. His legs trembled, his breath quickened. No, Darius clenched his fists. These memories didn't define him. His actions did. He had survived. He had learned. He had kept moving forward. With a deep breath, he reached out and grabbed the flame. The room exploded with golden light. When the light faded, Zelvanna stood before him. A slow, approving smile spread across her face. You have passed, she said. You are worthy. Darius smirked. Told you. But deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. Darius Voss stood in the center of the grand chamber, his breathing still heavy from the trials. The golden light of the final challenge had faded, leaving only silence. The Zorithian warriors who had been watching him with suspicion now looked at him with something different, respect. Queen Zelvanna descended from her throne, her golden eyes focused on him. There was something unreadable in her expression, something Darius couldn't quite place. You have done what many before you could not, she said. You have proven your strength, your intelligence, and your willpower. You are worthy. Darius smirked. So does that mean I win a prize? Zelvanna's lips curved slightly. Indeed, but this is no ordinary reward. She raised her hand, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. It showed a vast network of planets, fleets, and cities, the Zorithian Empire, but many of the planets were marked in red, showing decline and decay. We are dying, Zelvanna said, her voice quieter now. You know this already. What you may not understand is how desperate our situation is. Our people have ruled the stars for centuries, but our bloodline has grown stagnant. If we do nothing, the Zorithians will fade into history. Darius folded his arms. And that's where I come in. The queen nodded. Your DNA is the key. You are not just strong. You are adaptable. Your people evolve, change, grow stronger under pressure. That is what we need. Darius exhaled. He had fought in wars, faced impossible odds, but this was something completely different. You're asking me to help rebuild an empire, he said slowly. Yes, Zelvanna confirmed. By standing at my side, by helping me restore what has been lost. Darius frowned. And what exactly does that mean? Zalvanna took a step closer. It means that you will no longer be a simple soldier or mercenary. You will become a part of our legacy. Darius raised an eyebrow. You're talking about more than just politics, aren't you? The queen nodded once. Yes. The future of the Zorithians depends on what we do next. This is not just about survival. It is about creating something new. Darius let out a slow breath. He wasn't afraid of danger, but this was huge. He was being asked to step into the heart of an alien empire, to shape its future in ways he couldn't even begin to understand. But deep down, he had to admit, it intrigued him. He glanced around the chamber. The warriors who had doubted him now looked at him like a leader. Zalvanna, a queen who had ruled for centuries, was looking at him as an equal. Darius grinned. All right, Your Majesty. I'll help you save your empire. Zalvanna's golden eyes gleamed. Then let us begin. A dangerous path. Over the next few days, Darius was given a personal tour of the Zorithian capital, Velfar Prime, a breathtaking world of towering spires, glowing energy bridges, and floating starships. It was a civilization unlike anything he had ever seen. But beneath the beauty, he could see the cracks. The streets were not as full as they should have been. Many buildings were abandoned, and when he walked through the palace halls, he could hear whispers, distrust, fear, uncertainty. Not everyone agreed with Zalvanna's plan. One night, as Darius was exploring the palace gardens, a voice called out to him. You do not belong here, human. Darius turned. A tall Zorithian warrior in dark armor stepped forward. His violet skin was marked with battle scars, his sharp eyes filled with contempt. Let me guess, Darius said, crossing his arms. You're not a fan of this whole alliance thing. The warrior's jaw tightened. You are a stranger, an outsider. And yet, the queen places her trust in you. Darius sighed. Look, I didn't come here to take anyone's place. I just passed the tests, same as anyone else. The warrior narrowed his eyes. You do not understand our ways. You have not earned our loyalty. Darius smirked. Then what do you suggest? A fight? A duel? Because trust me, I've had worse days. For a moment, the warrior just stared at him. Then, surprisingly, he let out a small chuckle. Perhaps you are not as weak as I thought. Darius raised an eyebrow. So does that mean I get a welcome party, or are we still in the staring at each other menacingly phase? The warrior studied him for another long moment. Then he gave a slight nod. We shall see. With that, he turned and walked away. Darius exhaled. Yeah, this was going to be interesting. A new threat. The next morning, Darius was summoned to the queen's chamber. When he arrived, he saw Zalvanna standing before a massive holographic map, her expression tense. What's going on? He asked. She turned to him. We have a problem. The map showed the borders of the Zorithian Empire, but now there was something new, a flashing red alert on the edges of their territory. Our enemies have sensed our weakness, Zalvanna said. A warlord known as Tarkish, the Unbound, has gathered his fleets. He plans to strike before we can rebuild. Darius frowned. And you think he's right? Zalvanna met his gaze. If we do not act quickly, yes. Darius grinned. Then let's act. Zalvanna raised an eyebrow. You have a plan already. Darius cracked his knuckles. I'm human, remember. We adapt. The queen's lips curled into a smile. Then let us see if your strategies are as strong as your will. In the map, symbols of incoming hostile warships. Tarkish the Unbound, a ruthless warlord, was launching a full-scale attack. Darius exhaled sharply. So, what do we know about this guy? One of the Zorithian commanders, a battle-scarred officer named General Varish, stepped forward. Tarkish is a conqueror. He strikes at weak empires, pillages resources, and leaves destruction in his wake. He believes we are vulnerable. Darius smirked. Then let's show him how wrong he is. The Queen's golden eyes gleamed with approval. Do you have a strategy, Darius? He studied the holographic battle map, analyzing enemy formations. Tarkish's fleet was larger, heavily armed, and well coordinated. A direct assault would be suicide. Darius cracked his knuckles. We don't need to match his strength. We just need to be smarter. Zelvanna tilted her head. Explain. Darius pointed at the map. He's attacking from 3 angles. His main fleet is in the center, supported by 2 flanking groups. He expects us to defend evenly, but we won't. He tapped on the left flank. We make this side look weak, like an easy target. He'll send more forces to exploit it. Then he pointed at the right flank. Meanwhile, we hide a strike force here. Once he overcommits to the left, we ambush him from the right, cutting off his retreat. General Varish frowned. That's risky. Darius grinned. Yeah, but it'll work. Zelvanna's lips curled into a small smile. Then let us prepare for war. The space battle. Hours later, the Zorithian fleet took position above Velfar Prime. The stars were filled with warships, sleek, silver Zorithian cruisers hovering like silent predators, waiting for the enemy. Darius stood on the command bridge of the Zorithian flagship, watching the enemy fleet approach. Tarkish's warships were massive, covered in dark armor and bristling with weapons. Darius exhaled. Here we go. A deep voice echoed through the communication channels. This is Tarkish the Unbound. Surrender your world, and I will grant you mercy. Darius smirked and leaned forward. Tarkish, buddy, you talk too much. There was a pause. Then Tarkish growled. Very well. You will burn. The enemy ships opened fire. Blazing energy beams streaked across space. Explosions erupted as the battle began. Darius' strategy was simple but effective. The left flank appeared weak, drawing Tarkish's forces in. The enemy ships rushed forward, eager for an easy victory. Then, boom! The hidden Zorithian strike force launched their attack from the right flank. They struck fast, their warships slicing through the enemy lines. Tarkish's fleet was caught in the trap. Darius grinned. Perfect. Zelvanna turned to him. It's working. Darius nodded. Yeah, but now comes the hard part. Tarkish, realizing his mistake, ordered his fleet to retreat. But Darius wasn't going to let that happen. Cut them off, he commanded. Target their engines. The Zorithian fleet unleashed a devastating barrage, crippling enemy warships before they could escape. Tarkish's fleet was in chaos. Darius turned to Zelvanna. We need to hit their command ship. She nodded. Agreed. Let us finish this. Boarding the enemy ship. With the battle turning in their favor, Darius and a strike team prepared to board Tarkish's flagship. Darius suited up in Zorithian battle armor, sleek and reinforced with energy shields. He held a plasma rifle, ready for combat. Stay close, he told the strike team. We take out Tarkish, we end this war. They launched in a boarding pod, crashing into the side of the enemy warship. The doors exploded open, and Darius charged inside. Enemy warriors rushed to stop them. The hulls of the warship were filled with blaster fire and the clash of energy blades. Darius fought with precision. He moved fast, dodging attacks, taking down enemy soldiers one by one. The Zorithian warriors fought alongside him, pushing forward. Finally, they reached the command chamber. Tarkish stood at the center, a massive figure clad in dark armor. His glowing red eyes locked onto Darius. So, Tarkish growled, the human thinks he can defeat me. Darius smirked. Let's find out. The final duel. Tarkish charged. Darius barely dodged as a massive energy blade sliced through the air. Tarkish was fast, too fast for his size. But Darius wasn't just relying on strength. He used speed, agility. He dodged, countered, and struck at weak points. Tarkish roared in frustration. Then Darius saw an opening. He dodged another swing and lunged forward. His energy blade pierced Tarkish's armor, striking deep. Tarkish gasped. Darius stepped back as the warlord stumbled. "It's over," Darius said. Tarkish collapsed, his empire broken. The Zorithian warriors cheered. The battle was won. Victory and the future. Back on Velthar Prime, the Zorithians celebrated. Darius stood beside Queen Salvana, watching the night sky filled with victory lights. "You have done more than I ever expected," Salvana said. "You have not only saved our empire, you have changed its future." Darius chuckled. "Not bad for a human, huh?" She smiled. "Not bad at all." But deep down, Darius knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and new challenges awaited. And he was ready. The celebrations on Velthar Prime had lasted through the night. The Zorithian people cheered for their victory over Tarkish the Unbound, and for the warrior who had helped them win, Darius Voss. But Darius wasn't celebrating. He stood on the balcony of the Queen's palace, watching the stars. His instincts told him something wasn't right. Tarkish had been a powerful warlord, but he was just one piece of a bigger puzzle. And the galaxy was never quiet for long. Behind him, Queen Salvana approached, her golden robes flowing in the soft wind. "You are troubled," she observed. Darius sighed. Tarkish fell too easily. Salvana raised an eyebrow. "You call that easy?" Darius shook his head. No, but he wasn't acting alone. Someone helped him. Someone supplied his fleet with weapons, ships, resources. He turned to face her. "I don't think this war is over." Salvana's golden eyes darkened. "Then we must be ready." Just as she spoke, an alarm blared through the palace. Darius's instincts went on high alert. He grabbed his plasma pistol. "What now?" A Zorithian officer rushed in, out of breath. "My queen, we have a distress signal. The Zorithian outpost near the border has been destroyed." Salvana stiffened. "By whom?" The officer hesitated. Then he activated a holographic recording. Darius and the Queen watched as the outpost's final moments played out. The recording showed black warships emerging from the void, their hulls covered in glowing red symbols. Strange shadowy figures moved across the battlefield, cutting down Zorithian defenders with terrifying precision. Then, a chilling voice echoed through the transmission. "The time of the Zorithians is over. The Ascended are coming." The screen cut to static. Silence filled the room. Darius exhaled slowly. "Well, that doesn't sound good." Salvana's face was unreadable, but Darius could see the tension in her shoulders. "The Ascended." She whispered the name like a curse. Darius crossed his arms. "Who are they?" Salvana turned to him. "A legend. A warning from our past." She walked to the control panel and brought up an ancient record. It showed a civilization long thought extinct, beings who had once ruled vast regions of space, but had vanished thousands of years ago. They were once the most advanced species in the galaxy, Salvana explained. They sought to reach the next stage of evolution, to ascend beyond flesh. But they disappeared, until now. Darius frowned. "You think Tarkish was working for them?" Salvana nodded. "It makes sense. They let him attack us, let him weaken our empire. Now, they strike." Darius cracked his knuckles. "Then we hit them back." Salvana gave him a sharp look. "They are not like Tarkish. They are beyond anything you have faced before." Darius grinned. "Good. I like a challenge." The mission. Within an hour, Darius was fully armed and aboard a Zorithian stealth ship alongside General Varish and a small team of elite warriors. Their mission was simple. Investigate the destroyed outpost. Find out what they were dealing with. The journey was tense. The crew was silent as they approached the coordinates. Darius watched from the cockpit as the planet came into view, or what was left of it. The once thriving Zorithian colony was nothing but ruins. Massive craters scared the landscape. The city was in flames, and eerie black mist covered the ground. Darius cursed under his breath. "Looks like a nightmare." Varish nodded grimly. No survivors detected. The ship landed, and the team stepped out onto the silent battlefield. Everything was too quiet. Darius knelt down, examining the strange black mist. It clung to the ground, pulsing like it was alive. Then, something moved. A shadowy figure emerged from the mist. Tall, inhuman, its form shifting like a phantom. It had glowing red eyes, and its elongated arms ended in razor-sharp claws. Darius immediately aimed his plasma rifle. Contact. The creature let out an unnatural shriek and lunged forward. Darius fired. The plasma bolt passed through the creature as if it were made of smoke. What the? The creature struck, its claws barely missing Darius as he dodged. The Zorithian warriors opened fire, but their weapons did nothing. Varish shouted, "Our weapons are useless." Darius gritted his teeth. Think. Then he remembered something Salvanna had said. The Ascended wanted to evolve beyond flesh. They're not fully physical, Darius realized. We need energy-based weapons. One of the warriors switched to an ion disruptor and fired. The bolt hit the creature, and it let out a piercing scream before disintegrating. "That works," Darius muttered. But then, more creatures emerged from the mist. Dozens. Darius clenched his fists. This just got worse. Escape and revelation. Back to the ship, Darius shouted. The team ran, firing disruptors to hold off the creatures. But the mist was rising, and the shadows were moving faster. Darius covered the retreat, taking down another creature with a well-placed shot to the head. Finally, they reached the ship. The pilot activated the thrusters just as the creatures lunged toward them. The ship blasted into the sky, leaving the nightmare behind. Darius collapsed into his seat, breathing heavily. That was too close. Varish nodded. "We need to warn the Queen." As they set course for Velthar Prime, Darius stared out the window, his mind racing. This was no ordinary war. This was something bigger, something far worse than Tarkish. And he had a feeling. The real fight was just beginning. Darius sat in the cockpit of the Zorithian stealth ship, staring at the stars as they sped toward Velthar Prime. His mind was still racing. The creatures they had encountered at the destroyed colony were unlike anything he had faced before. They weren't just soldiers. They were monsters. Behind him, General Varish examined the ship's sensor readings. His expression was grim. There was nothing left of the colony. No survivors. No remains. Just that black mist. Darius nodded. And those things weren't just killing people. They were consuming them. Varish's face hardened. If the Ascended have truly returned, this war is far from over. Darius exhaled. No, it's just getting started. The warning. Hours later, they arrived at Velthar Prime. The Zorithian capital city gleamed beneath the twin moons, its towers standing tall against the night sky. But despite the beauty, there was an uneasy tension in the air. Darius and Varish hurried to the Queen's war room, where Salvanna was already waiting. She studied them carefully. "Tell me." Darius didn't waste time. The colony was wiped out, not by an army, but by something else. These creatures, they weren't normal. They could shift like shadows, they were almost invincible, and they used that black mist to spread. Salvanna's expression darkened. Then the legends are true. She turned to a holographic display and brought up old Zorithian records. The images showed the Ascended in their past form, before they had transformed into what Darius had fought. They were once an empire of flesh and blood, like us, she said. But they sought to evolve beyond their physical limits. They experimented on themselves, trying to merge with energy itself. Darius frowned. And now they're just living shadows. Salvanna nodded. They call it the Ascension. They believe they are the final stage of evolution. Varish clenched his fists. And now they're back. If they keep spreading, the entire galaxy will fall. Sylvana took a deep breath. Then we must strike first. Darius crossed his arms. How? Our weapons barely worked against them. She turned to a scientist standing nearby. Have you completed the analysis? The scientist nodded. Yes, my queen. We study the energy signature of the Ascended. Their bodies are not truly solid. They exist in a state between matter and energy. But, Darius raised an eyebrow. But what? The scientist continued. We have discovered a way to disrupt them. A special energy pulse. One that can force them back into physical form for a few seconds. Darius grinned. And in those seconds, we hit them with everything we've got. Sylvana nodded. Exactly. Varish looked at the queen. We must act quickly. Where do we strike? The queen tapped the hologram. We received an intercepted transmission. The Ascended are preparing a massive attack on one of our largest planets, Drakkar VI. If they take it, they will have a foothold in our empire. Darius straightened. Then we stop them. We take the fight to them. Sylvana's golden eyes met his. Then prepare. We go to war. The battle for Drakkar VI. Within hours, the Zorithian fleet was mobilized. Hundreds of warships, sleek and powerful, stood ready. The new energy disruptors were installed on every vessel, giving them a fighting chance against the Ascended. Darius stood on the bridge of the flagship, overlooking the massive fleet. He took a deep breath. This was it. Approaching Drakkar VI, the pilot announced. The planet came into view, an industrial world covered in giant cities and factories. But something was wrong. The sky was turning black. From the void of space, dark warships emerged, their hulls covered in glowing red symbols. The Ascended fleet had arrived. Darius tightened his grip on the rail. Let's see what these things can really do. The enemy ships didn't fire traditional weapons. Instead, tendrils of black mist reached out, latching onto Zorithian ships. Energy shields failed instantly. Crews screamed as the mist infiltrated their ships, consuming everything inside. Darius' stomach twisted. This wasn't just a battle. It was an invasion. But the Zorithians fought back. Activate the disruptors, Sylvana commanded. The fleet unleashed the new energy pulses. Bright waves of energy washed over the battlefield, forcing the Ascended warships into their physical forms. Now, fire everything. The Zorithian ships opened fire with full force. Plasma cannons and ion disruptors tore through the enemy fleet. For the first time, the Ascended were bleeding. Darius smirked. That's more like it. But then, a massive portal opened in the center of the battlefield, and something huge stepped through. A colossal figure, taller than any ship, emerged from the void. Its body was made of the same black mist, but its glowing red eyes burned with intelligence. The battlefield fell silent. Then the creature spoke. You delay the inevitable. Your kind will be consumed. Your world will fall. Darius stared up at the towering figure. His heart pounded. This wasn't just a soldier. This was a leader, a general of the Ascended, and it was coming straight for them. Darius turned to Sylvana. Looks like we just got their attention. She nodded, her expression calm but determined. Then we end this. Now. Darius smirked and cracked his knuckles. Let's kill a god. The battlefield over Drakkar VI burned with fire and shadow. The Ascended warships swarmed the Zorithian fleet, their black mist reaching out like living tendrils. But this time, the Zorithians were ready. The energy disruptors pulsed through space, forcing the Ascended into their physical forms. The moment their ships solidified, Zorithian plasma cannons ripped through them. Explosions lit up the void. Darius stood on the bridge of the Zorithian flagship, gripping the railing as he watched the chaos unfold. We're holding the line, he muttered. But that thing. His gaze locked onto the colossal figure that had stepped through the portal. It was massive, larger than any warship, its form shifting between mist and solid metal. Its glowing red eyes burned like stars. The leader of the Ascended. And it was heading straight for them. The creature's voice echoed through every ship, every comm channel. Flesh is weak. Energy is eternal. Submit to the ascension. Darius rolled his shoulders and smirked. Sorry, not interested. Queen Sylvana stood beside him, her golden eyes filled with determination. This is the true enemy. If we don't stop it now, everything we know will be lost. Darius nodded. Then we take it down. The plan. The Zorithian fleet continued to battle the Ascended warships, but the colossal leader moved forward, unharmed. Regular weapons barely scratched it. Varish studied the readings. Our disruptors work on the smaller ones, but this thing is on another level. It's not fully in our dimension. We can't kill it unless we bring it completely into the physical world. Darius's mind raced. Then we need a bigger disruptor. Sylvana's eyes widened. The core disruptor on this ship, if we overload it, we could create a massive energy wave. Varish hesitated. That could destroy us as well. Darius grinned. Then we better make it count. Sylvana nodded. We overload the core. When the creature is fully solid, we focus all firepower on it. Varish gave a sharp nod. I'll prepare the overload sequence. Darius turned to the crew. Get ready. This is either our greatest victory or our last stand. Luring the Titan. The Zorithian flagship sped toward the colossal Ascended. The massive creature reached out, its shadowy form wrapping around the ship. The hull shook violently. Core disruptor at full charge. Varys shouted. Sylvana stood firm. Fire. A massive energy pulse erupted from the ship, engulfing the Ascended leader in a golden wave of light. The creature let out a piercing shriek. Its form flickered, shifting between shadow and solid matter. Darius grabbed his plasma rifle. Now, hit it with everything we've got. The final strike. The Zorithian fleet unleashed their full firepower. Plasma beams, ion cannons, and missiles rained down on the now solid creature. The Ascended leader screamed, its form cracking, breaking apart. It reached out toward the flagship, trying to pull itself back into the void, but it was too late. Darius narrowed his eyes. Time to finish this. He grabbed the ship's main cannon controls and locked onto the creature's core. Firing. A massive plasma beam blasted straight through the Ascended leader's chest. The creature let out one final, agonizing scream before it exploded into pure energy. The shockwave rippled through space, destroying the remaining Ascended warships. The black mist vanished, as if it had never existed. Silence filled the battlefield. Then, the Zorithian fleet erupted in cheers. The Ascended were defeated. Victory and a new beginning. On Velthar Prime, the people celebrated. The Ascended threat had been erased. The galaxy was safe. Darius stood on the Queen's balcony, looking over the city. It was over. Sylvana joined him, a rare smile on her face. You saved my people. Darius smirked. I had some help. She nodded. Perhaps. But without you, we wouldn't have stood a chance. Darius exhaled. So, what now? Sylvana looked up at the stars. The galaxy is vast. There will always be threats. She turned to him. And I will always need warriors like you. Darius grinned. Well, I do like a good fight. She extended her hand. Then stay. Be more than a warrior. Be a part of something greater. Darius looked at her, then at the stars. He had been a lone fighter, a human lost in the galaxy. But now, he had a place, a purpose. He took her hand, and a new legend began.